Hey everybody, what's up? It's about 2:45 and you're probably wondering why I'm wearing this t-shirt. Well, I'm about to give you some, as you can see up there, spoilers for this Thursday night. As I call them, Tna'S spoilers for this Thursday night. And well, I'm going to give you guys about 5 seconds in a little bit. When I set this thing off, this is a new app I have on my iPod. It's a police siren. Once I set this off, in 5 seconds, I'm going to give you 5 seconds after I turn this on to turn down the volume if you don't want to be spoiled. And then when I press this again, that'll be your signal to turn it back on. Okay? Okay, now 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And now. That's your signal, ladies and gentlemen, to turn down the volume if you don't want to be spoiled for what I'm about to tell you. And when I do this again, that'll be your signal to turn on the volume. So I'm giving you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and now. Okay. Now for those of you that left the volume on, well, I guess you like to be spoiled. And for those of you that didn't leave the volume on, I applaud you because I know maybe you like to be surprised. But for those of you that did leave the volume on and want to be spoiled, that's your choice, so here we go. Basically, we start out with Hogan, Bischoff, Jarrett, Hardy, and Abyss coming out and explaining their actions. Hogan comes out, basically explains the reason he did what he did is because Dixie Carter never used any of his ideas when she promised she would. Jarrett and Bischoff are out together, and Jarrett says the reason he's with them is because Dixie Carter stole his company from him, or took his company out from under him and used her dad's money to do whatever she wanted with it. Abyss comes out and proclaims finally that they are who we knew they were going to be and that they're here. And then Hardy comes out and it explains that the reason he did what he did is because he didn't sell out, he sold in, and the fact that he's sick and tired of the fans always basically cheering him on to do certain things that cause him a lot of pain, so now he's doing what he wants. Basically what it is they're turning Hardy into making Hardy into a more younger version of what Hogan was back in the 90s during the NWO deal. Now Fortune comes out, and it looks like we're going to have a confrontation between Fortune and Team Hogan, as they like to call themselves, and Flair and Hogan. But instead, we get an embrace. And we find out that Hogan and Flair are on the same team, and that Fortune and Flair were a part of this all along. Then they invite Sting and Nash to come out and join them. Excuse me. They invite Sting and Nash to come out and join them, and Sting and Nash both decline. Nash says, hey, it sounds good and everything, but I've gotten wiser. He quotes something from the Bible and says basically he's going to give the money back to the younger guys, or pass it on to them. Sting says he loves TNA. Sting, like I said, also declines, says he loves TNA and vows that history will not repeat itself. So anyway, that's what happened at the beginning of Impact. Now, according to RVD Tito for Life, who I just subscribed to, and Dushore, I can't pronounce his name, and I apologize for that, rumors are going around that this new faction, Fortune and Team Hogan combined together, are going to be known as the NWE, the New World Elite. Basically TNA's version of NWO. That's why I'm wearing this t-shirt. Now you think to yourself, why would TNA do this? Why would Russo and whoever's working with him do this? But, well, obviously Bischoff and Hogan, but why would Russo even write this stuff? I mean, does anybody get it through their head? Yes, NWO has its place in wrestling history. It always will It always will have its place in history. It'll be known as the faction in the group that changed wrestling forever. That's what they're going to be known for. But doesn't anybody get it through their head that we don't want this anymore? That we don't want to have the same storylines repeated? I mean, it's like RVD Tito for Life said. You know, what are we going to have? Sting versus Hardy? Is Sting going to be the TNA savior like he was the WCW savior? Are we going to have Sting versus Hogan? Are we going to have, well, obviously RVD versus Hardy, RVD versus Hogan? You know, is that what we're going to have? You know, if I'm TNA and I'm smart enough to listen to the fans, like Dixie Carter says, TNA listens to the fans come first. If I'm smart enough to listen to the fans, let me tell you this. Let me tell you this right now. I would basically look at this angle, look at the storyline, give it a month or so, and if it doesn't get over, scrap it as soon as possible. Even if it goes 2 months or so, fine. Let it end at final resolution, but scrap it. Don't go a whole year like you did with the Main Event Mafia. Now, the Main Event Mafia, I admit, did get over because they were different. Yes, they were NWO-like, but here's the deal. They were mostly world champions. That's right, mostly world champions. They only let a select few into the group, but they mostly were world champions. That was it. If you were a world champion, you were in the group. And that's what made them unique, because they were world champions. And like I said, only a select few got to join, even if they weren't. Now, here's the deal. Here's the deal. That group, like I said, got over because of the uniqueness of being World Champions Only faction. Then they tried the World Elite. Didn't get over too well, even if they joined them up with the Main Event Mafia, because even though Eric Young was the figurehead, no one could accept Eric Young as a serious guy. They couldn't accept it. Fans were used to seeing Eric Young in the roles that he's in, like right now, in the more comedic roles. They weren't used to seeing him as a serious, no-nonsense leader. They were used to seeing him the way he was, and the way he is right now. That's why the World Elite didn't get over. I mean, take a look, for example, even the women have a faction, if you will, or had a faction in the Beautiful People, when it was 3 of them. Right? Madison, Angelina, and Velvet, and then Velvet, Lacey, and Madison. You know, they all got over because they were unique. They brought a different uniqueness to the table when it came to the women wrestling. And yeah, there have been imitators. That's why Lay Cool's not getting over that much in WWE, because they're basically an imitation, a cheap imitation of the Beautiful People. And that's exactly what the so-called possible NWE is going to be. A cheap imitation of WCW NWO. That's what it's going to be. What are we going to see on the pay-per-views in the future? TNA/NWE? Is that what we're going to see? Huh? Just like they had in WCW pay-per-views where it said at first WCW, then it said WCW/NWO? Are we going to have Jeff Hardy come out being announced as the TNA/NWE World Champion? That's all this is a cheap imitation of the NWE. That's all it is. Not to mention the fact that you got Kurt Angle coming out later on that night, about to announce his retirement, but only after he gets some answers as to why he was screwed and lied to. Which of course led to a brawl between Jarrett and Angle, because Jarrett came out, and Taz had to get involved of all people. Taz! And then if you think that's crazy, RVD has to come out and save Samoa Joe's ass from being beaten down by Abyss, demands a match with Hardy. Bischoff says, fine. you'll get your match if you beat Mr. Anderson, because the winner of that will face Hardy. Whereas we all know, this being a rehash and a repeat of NWO, that didn't happen because Bischoff somehow got the referee out of the ring, allowed Hardy to come in, basically beat up both competitors, and fans start doing stuff in the ring at him, which of course Universal Studios doesn't allow, so they have to escort some of those fans out. But still, it's the same thing. It's just a cheap rehashing. I mean, what's the storyline going to be with someone like, say, Jarrett, later down the line, a part of this? Is he going to do what Vince McMahon tried to do with the NWO when he brought them in? Is he going to try to kill the company unless Dixie Carter gives it back to him? In which he probably did, or probably didn't, with that paper. I mean, what about that paper Dixie signed? Did she sign over the company to Bischoff and Hogan, or was she able to get a hold of that paper before it went through? Who knows? But you know, this is what I see happening. Quite honestly, this is what I see happening. We're going to have RVD versus Jeff Hardy. Loser leaves TNA match for the world title. To send the fans home happy, they're probably going to put the belt back on RVD. Hardy's going to be gone from TNA and probably end up spending his jail time, and probably use that being gone from TNA to finally probably go to, as people are predicting, go to jail for the next couple of years. Maybe not. And then unfortunately, we're probably going to get what a lot of fans don't want to see, and that's that final resolution, which I predict could be what happens, maybe not. But sooner or later down the line, depending on how long TNA wants to drag this out, we're eventually going to have a Sting versus Hogan match. That's what it's going to be. We're going to get that. But you know what? As much as I hate to say it, there is a positive side to this. Because if this storyline, this angle, this NWE crap, this cheap imitation of the NWO, once this is over and done with, which I believe is going to be sooner than we expect, which I believe truly that's what it's going to be, everything in TNA is going to go back to the way it was. The four-sided ring we got in there, it's going to be gone. Fans are going to get the six-sided ring back. Because why was the four-sided ring first brought in? Because of Hogan. Once Hogan, storyline-wise or real-life-wise, is gone from TNA, fans are going to get the six-sided ring back. That's what's going to happen. Things are going to go back to the way they were once this whole thing blows over. Once this whole storyline, like I say, depending on how long TNA drags it out, hopefully it won't be for long, drags it out, after it's all said and done, things will go back to the way they were. And I'll tell you when you're going to start seeing signs of it wearing down. Like I said, it depends on how it gets over with the fans, and if it doesn't, then you'll start seeing signs of it coming to an end. Because like I said, if it doesn't get over with the fans, then you're eventually going to see a lot of the NWE, if most of the NWE not only start to disband and have friction among each other, but you're going to start seeing a lot of them lose matches. But those are just my thoughts on this whole situation. Tell me what you think, and I will talk to you all later. Peace out.